All right. 3, 2. Okay, one thing I wanted to get to that we jumped past last time is the quarterback situation behind Brown. He's clearly the starter unless he falls on his face, but there are 3 dynamite dudes behind him, a 5-star and 2 4-stars, I believe, right? Ty Thompson's 5-star, Ashford and Butterfield 4-star kids. Who do you think, 1, is going to be the backup this season? And 2, who do you think, and do you think that person is going to be a virtual lock to be the starter in 2022? Or are they going to have to fight on their hands with the other 2 guys no matter what happens this season?
Yeah, I think that one way or another that the backup role will probably be a competitive spot for a while. Even if they declare a backup, I think it could be Jay Butterfield or Ty Thompson. And that's not knocking Robbie Ashford, but in terms of how he's played. He's played well when he's gotten out there. The reason why I've separated him compared to the other 2 at this moment is just because, for one reason or another, some of it not necessarily his fault, he's just been more limited in the scrimmages that we've seen. Go back to the first spring scrimmage, he didn't take part because he rolled his ankle that week. Go back to the spring game. All right, yes, he closed the spring game with a touchdown pass and the 2-point conversion run, but he had fewer opportunities compared to the other young guys you mentioned. In this past Saturday scrimmage was limited. Now, when he was out there, he completed 3 straight passes, including the only touchdown pass in the scrimmage with the number 3 offense against the number 3 defense. That's not taking anything away from him. It's just contextualizing how things went down. Compare that to the other 2 guys who played more with the number 2s, even got a little bit of work with the number 1s. And that we've seen that already in the spring. So that's why I think it'll ultimately come down to Butterfield or Thompson for this fall in terms of the backup role. And then what does the competition look like? Fast forward past this season. Now we're already talking about 2022. I think it's going to be competitive between all 3, regardless of who the backup is, regardless of number 3 is, regardless of number 4 is. I think it's going to be a really competitive competition. And we're not even mentioning quarterback commit who they have in Tanner Bailey as well as another 4-star, borderline 5-star player. So it is going to be a really competitive quarterback competition after this season for Oregon. It'll be a competitive battle for the backup role this year, probably for the number 3 role this year. But what does that entail for, and is the backup role this year mean and indicate anything in terms of who's ahead for the competition for the following year? I'm not convinced that it absolutely does, because of just how good these guys are, how highly touted they are, and frankly, how well they've played in the scrimmages we've seen. Like I say, I thought on Saturday night, Mario said that Thompson played the best, and that was after film review, but we all felt that way in real time. He did play well. That said, I don't think any of them played terrible. I don't think anybody played really poorly on Saturday night's first fall scrimmage. Yes, things are a little vanilla. Brown faced the most consistent pressure, so nobody's completion percentages were outrageous. Yes, again, Ashford was 3 for 3 in a small sample, but everybody else was okay, completion percentage-wise, but I thought Thompson made the most plays. And I thought Butterfield was next because, again, he made nice plays. But all of them had a deep throw thrown in there. All of them did pretty well. So whether or not they anoint anyone as the designated backup, or it's, again, Butterfield or Thompson, and they just do certain things in practice, but, they kind of still split reps along the way. I could see it happen either way, and I don't think that who ultimately is the number 2 on paper this year necessarily indicates that they'll be the favorite heading into the offseason, because, like I say, these guys are all really talented in their own different ways. They are different kinds of players.
What's interesting about this group to me is that it feels a lot different than the group that came in right after Mariota. We had Travis Johnson, Terry Wilson, then you had Morgan Mahalik. There was always a big mystery about could any of them actually play, right? But now it feels like with all 3 of these guys, it's more a matter of who's going to win the job and be the guy, and then who's probably going to ultimately transfer. They're not all going to stay. There's no way. They're all pretty much around the same age. But there's not a sense at all that at least one of them, or there is a sense that at least one of them is going to emerge as not only a good starter, but maybe an elite all Pac-12 level guy. Do you agree with that?
For sure, they have the top end talent. I don't get into the projecting about transferring stuff because that's, to me, I've never done that. I never will. I don't speculate on that. I don't do it here. I don't do it in writing. I don't do it on radio. I just don't go there. To me, it's incredibly unfair to college players to do that. I just don't. I never do that. I could be the number 85 guy on the depth chart, and it's a foregone conclusion. I just don't go there. So
Okay, I'll go there for us.
Yeah, I mean, feel free.
One will be gone by spring, but
I just never do that with anybody. Never have, never will. That's just not, it's not what I do. But will it be a competitive deal? Absolutely. Again, are these guys all highly touted in a recruiting sense? Absolutely. Again, I can't speak to everybody. Historically speaking, you bring up guys from the past of, this year or yesteryear. I certainly know if you want to go back to the Chip era, I mean, Chip even today, I mean, never asked Chip about recruiting rankings because recruiting rankings never mattered to Chip because it's all about system fit. And, he manages to find every diamond in the rough, right? I mean, he's just smarter than everybody else. We know. So, okay. Hey, if you believe in that, well, there's a degree of proof in the pudding there. But if you actually believe that some people may know a thing or two and that 4 and 5 stars do tend to indicate who might be competitive, and the teams who've been in the playoff the most since the playoff has been around has been the teams who habitually are at the highest of recruiting rankings. It's funny how those correlate. Yes, Oregon has an awfully nice cluster of top end talent, not only at the quarterback position but some of the skill positions.
But you've seen them. Like, I haven't watched these guys practice yet. So I'm asking you, your eye test when you look at them. I mean, there's a long way to go, obviously, but do you feel like, yeah, that guy's got the goods? Whereas, like, what I'm saying is that some of these guys back in the day, I'd be like, I don't know. There's some question marks there, and then it turned out they all ended up transferring. Same thing with Burmeister and stuff like that. But it sounds like these three of that group, someone is probably going to emerge as a guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see, particularly from Jay Butterfield, you see a really big arm. You saw that in the spring. You saw a little bit Saturday night. He had a deep pass in particular that was quite good. So I think his overall arm strength, and not just velocity, yes, velocity, but driving the ball down the field, I think he's really got it. Thompson is a little bit more of a true dual threat. It certainly has the build and body type, the speed and mobility, and also has a pretty big arm. But when you combine it with just the build that he has, the frame that he has, and that he's going to grow into it that much more.
Yeah, he's just a kid.
So when you're talking about a guy who's a true freshman, and you could say, well, could he play as a true freshman? I'm not going to say he can't. That's for sure. Not with a 4-game redshirt rule, especially. So could he play? Absolutely, he could play. Could he be effective? Yeah, like I say, Saturday night he was awfully good. He ran out there with the number 2s and the number 1. So yeah, I mean, he was pretty darn good. He's a really talented, obviously the highest rated high school quarterback recruit that Oregon's ever signed, and for good reason. He fits the bill. Do I think that fast forward 2-3 years and he's 25, 30 pounds bigger and more muscular, maybe even get some improved arm strength, improved speed, that he has, again, a lot to grow and get into? Absolutely. Could he play early? Sure. Absolutely. Robbie Ashford. Again, another dual threat guy, unbelievable athlete, 2-sport athlete, plays baseball at Oregon as well. Now in the fall, he'll be, he's football only for the remainder of the year, but he was contending for a starting center field job last season. And until the ankle injury happened, and then various different things, COVID related on the team and every which other thing, and then the center field job basically got locked down, he could be competing for a starting outfield spot in Oregon baseball in the spring, and amid spring practice and everything else. So, these guys are all talented in their own ways. Ashford is probably he might be the fastest of the 3. Butterfield might have the best arm of the 3. And Thompson may have the best all-around game of the 3. So that's where I say I think this it's a legit competition. It's not it's not lip service when Mark keeps talking about, we're going to let those guys compete and whatever, and you go like, all right, but really? No, with these guys it is. It is. You see it. They're back. You've seen it more than once. You've seen it. They each have a different and diverse skill set. And like I say, I'm not going to be the one to say that any of them aren't going to play in any capacity this fall, especially with the 4-game redshirt rule. And I'm not going to begin to guess who's going to be the starter in 22 right now, because it's competitive now.
Yeah,
it's competitive now, and you haven't seen them. And none of them have taken a live hit in a college football setting. Right. Nor will they until they get into a game. So, none of them throwing a college pass. It's nice to do it in scrimmages. It's nice to do it in spring practice or fall camp. But, until it's really live fire out there and it's an opposing defense who's coming after you. Hey, but no, I'm not going to begin to project out in terms of who will win the starting job for 22. It's a little early.
You don't have a leader yet. Okay, that's fair. So there's a little bit over a couple of weeks before the first game. Give me like 2 or 3 answers that you think that Ducks need to find questions for between now and Fresno.
Other way around. Questions that they need to find questions for the answers, or they need to find answers for the questions.
What did I say? So did I say it in reverse?
Yeah.
Sorry. Give me some answers.
You're not mid-season form yet.
Give me some answers for some questions. Give me some questions that need answers. So whatever.
Yes. Yeah. I got you. Yes.
Cut.
I think. I think they need to find. It's probably just a couple of spots lower down on the depth chart. It's the biggest thing. I think a lot of the starting spots are pretty solidified. I say pretty solidified because there are some spots where there's some competition to be sure. I think a little bit of a wrench got thrown in, to say the least, at the tight end position this week with Patrick Herbert suffering a knee injury, and he was certainly he was working exclusively with the ones that we saw in the spring, and was certainly going to be in position to be a major contributor at tight end. He's down. He will be for the foreseeable future. So Spencer Webb is still atop that depth chart right now. DJ Johnson is back right now. Cam McCormick is back and back on the field, worked with second team offense on the weekend. And you got 2, true freshmen out there who have played well, contributed in the spring game, contributed in the scrimmage on Saturday, who will certainly have roles. So they have depth there. But if you had to ask me who is absolutely the number 2 tight end on this team right now, I couldn't tell you. And that's not because there isn't an answer. No, it's because there's so many answers. So it's just a matter of sorting out 2 through 5 at the tight end position. Now it's a matter of sorting out who's number 7, who's number 8 on the offensive line, who is the next rotational guy on the interior of the defensive line. If the top 4 is set, hey, that 5th guy is still going to play 5 to 7 snaps a game. They still play. And they may be really important plays, quite frankly. You may not think of them at the time, but somebody's going to be out there on 2nd down and 8 and need to come in. And, now first down gets picked up and now they're back out there and they can't just take plays off and loaf and not care. So who some of those guys are in certain, positional roles. But as a whole, I think in terms of the major questions that a team could be facing, when you're talking about a team who's changing quarterbacks, do they have an answer? Yeah. Is there a backup battle? Absolutely. Is that a monumental thing? No. Do they have major questions at running back? No. Major questions at receiver? I wouldn't say major questions. They do have a couple of guys coming off of injuries of varying degrees. And again, also a lot of really talented freshmen coming in. I think the question of receiver is how fast can those freshmen contribute and push for not just spots on the 2 deep, can they push far more experienced players for roles and opportunities higher up? And I don't think that's going to happen before Fresno State, but as the season goes on, possible. And then defensively, we talked about it before. There's several of the positions. The moving parts in the secondary is probably the only area that I think are real true questions per se. But we'll get clarity between now and the Fresno State game on that. But as a whole, I don't think, this is not, let's put it this way. This is not Arizona. This is not Colorado. This isn't Washington State. This isn't, even Cal, frankly, has a couple more questions, despite having a lot of guys back. Stanford has more questions and replacing a quarterback. This team does not have that volume of questions. And because of that, that's why they're to circle it all back around, that's why they're the highest ranked team in the Pac-12. That's why they're expected to win the conference and three-peat. I know, contrary to what Aaron believes, but that is why they are projected to be where they are, because they have a lot of certainty and they have a lot of talent. And when you have those things, usually people predict good things for you. If you have certainty without talent, there are places that have that. They are the 119th most experienced offensive line. Now that doesn't include their junior college starts, but they have talent. There are 118 teams with more experience on the offensive line. Are you telling me there's 118 better offensive lines in the country? I can tell you they're not. So you can have experience without talent. They have a combination of both. And in areas where they're lacking experience, yeah, sometimes the talent gap makes up the difference.
Agreed. All right. I think we're done.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for listening here to this reboot episode of Ducks Confidential. He's, again, Aaron Fentress, and I'm James Crepea. Make sure to subscribe to the Ducks Confidential podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and then those episodes will filter on through to your phone or mobile device, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you like the show, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review and Apple Podcasts, tell a friend. All that stuff really helps people find the show. And again, subscribe to get the latest episodes, which we'll be bringing you at least weekly in the course of the preseason. And then once we get into the season, we're looking to do it no less than twice a week. We'll be doing these. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to keeping you folks posted. And again, thanks for listening.